So I thought it'd be kind of cool to use my extra bulbs and use these inexpensive urns to create some beautiful color that will be right here flanking both sides of our back porch. Hey everybody, it's the last day of January and we're still anticipating that beautiful spring that I know is coming. But in the meantime, we've been trying to kind of clean up the yard and do some maintenance, but not a lot of planting yet. And I know that a lot of us are so excited to get to the part of the season where we get to start planting. And one of the first things that we do every year to make sure that we have early spring color is to plant tulips. And I talked about that a couple of weeks ago, but we have been planting tulips. We ordered from Color Blends this year, which is an online wholesale retailer. And they are so fantastic because here in Southern California, like I've said before many times, we don't get cold enough for tulips to grow naturally here, so we have to have them refrigerated, and they do that for us, and it's kind of nice because we don't have to take room up in our refrigerator and we can get them planted. So I've been planting tulips ever since they arrived, all the way back at the end of December. We planted up our flower beds in the front yard. We planted up our raised beds here in the backyard while they're kind of dormant. We're not really growing any vegetables or anything like that, and so it's going to be a beautiful show of color, I know, in just a couple of weeks. But I did save, there was a couple extra bulbs. I have about 50 bulbs left over, and the thing with the tulips that have been already pre-chilled is you want to get them in the ground as soon as possible. But we've been pretty busy around here. We're having a new roof put on our house. I've been busy at work, and we've been slowly working through the yard, and so those last bulbs have been neglected to get planted. So I think I'm going to make good use of them today, and hopefully we'll have some spring color that will be here in a few weeks. Actually, probably by the end of February, we'll have some beautiful spring colors. So we're going to do that today. So let's get to it. So if you're going to plant in containers, let's talk about some of the steps that I've already done and what I will do to make sure that I have some success here in these containers. First thing I did was I cleared out these containers. I had some double up begonias in here and some spent super bells that definitely had to go. They've seen better days. They were beautiful, but they needed to come out. So I cleared those out, and then I washed out these containers really nicely. I used a sponge and a little bit of soapy water and then dried them off. I think in a number of months when the tulips are done, I might do the same thing, save the soil, because the soil will still be good for my annuals. And I probably will give them a nice fresh coat of paint on these plastic faux containers. They're very light, but you know, they are showing some wear and tear, some watermarks, so I'm going to probably sand that down and give them a nice fresh coat of paint, maybe in a black color or a dark charcoal, a little bit darker than this. But for right now, I'm going to just take advantage of the fact that they're empty, and I'm going to use some really nice soil that I know can be used in the spring when I plant my annuals after the tulips. And what I'm going to use today is some Patio Plus container soil from Kellogg, and this is really nice. It doesn't have necessarily a lot of nutrients, but it is fortified a little bit, and I'm not going to worry about adding anything to these bulbs at this time. Sometimes you can use bulb tone or some bone meal. I might use just a little bit of bone meal today if I can find some, but it's not necessary because this already has some nutrients, and the bulbs here in Southern California, they don't last more than 2 years. They're going to come out. We treat them as an annual. So that's how we're going to do. We're going to keep it really simple. We're going to use this. I'm going to fill it up probably about 3/4 of the way. The bulbs don't need to be super deep. I have this box of bulbs right here. Here's a great example right now, and they're definitely coming up. We already have the sprout right here at the top. But if you did have bulbs where they didn't start growing like this, then you want to make sure that the pointy part faces up and the more flat area faces down, because that's where the roots are going to start developing. And so I'm just going to plant those in just like this, and probably about 3 to 4 inches deep. I could probably go a little bit lower, but I'm going to keep them at that height, especially for a container. I'm not going to have any drip irrigation on it. It is not necessary to do that. I'm just going to water them as needed. You don't want to over water them. You want to make sure that that soil is nice and well drained, because if they sit in water, then they could rot out. So it's not necessary for me to have any kind of drip irrigation lined up to these, because just occasional water as needed will be more than sufficient. So let's get started, okay? Let's start putting the soil in, and guys, this is really, really simple. Now, the tulips that I ordered this year, it's actually a blend. It's called, believe it's Big Ups, and it has 7 or 8 different color varieties in that mix, and they're kind of in the pastels. So I think it's going to be really nice to add that really, really pretty color here at the back porch. So just to recap of a couple of things that are really important if you're going to plant bulbs in containers is, first of all, make sure that you pick bulbs that are good quality. If you have an extra stash of bulbs that are a little bit dried out or kind of squishy, you probably want to discard those because they're not going to grow. The ones that are nice and firm, that even have sprouts on them, they should be just fine. And you want to make sure that those bulbs have had a period of chill, not freezing, but chill, so that they can push their blooms in the spring. For us, again, here in Southern California, we have to do that artificially, but in other places in the country where it gets cold enough, that should be just fine. But tulips and alliums need that prolonged duration of chill in order to bloom. The next thing that you want to make sure that you do after you've selected those bulbs and they've had their proper chill time is select containers that are well draining. They don't have to be expensive. They can be pre-existing containers that you have right now, but we do need to make sure that they drain very well and that they don't have a saucer on the bottom of them so they retain that moisture, because the bulbs are very susceptible to rotting out, and you want to make sure that they have plenty of drain holes in that container so that they can not retain that moisture that is just a detriment to their success. And then, of course, the third thing that you want to make sure that you do is you don't overwater them. Just keep them consistently, a little bit damp. They don't need to be saturated. But other than that, it's as simple as that. And I'll make sure to give you guys an update on these urns and how they look in the weeks to come, because it's only going to be a matter of time before the bulbs are in full bloom in this garden, and they are the first things to bloom during the year, and we look forward to them every year. So anyways, thank you guys so much for coming. I know it wasn't the most exciting video, but we are looking forward to spring just as you are, I'm sure, and we are excited to share with you what we have growing as we progress through all of the seasons this next year. Until next time, everybody, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.